Minister, in the past week we have watched global leaders attend the Paris summit on climate change. President Obama has spoke about the need for this generation to act on climate change policy, because if we don't, it will be too late for future generations. It is both a challenge and an opportunity for all of us to do what is right. It involves everyone in both urban and rural areas to take up this challenge. As the House is aware, there were wind energy guidelines published in 2006, and there are many wind turbines around all parts of this country to help Ireland achieve its alternative energy targets. Last year, 23% of Ireland's energy requirements were produced from alternative energies, and 4/5 of this came from onshore wind. As the scale of the turbines increased, communities are justifiably concerned about the noise, the shadow flicker and the distance from the turbines, and the quality and the impact this will have on the quality of their lives and communities. New draft revisions to the noise setbacks, to the shadow flicker of the 2006 wind energy guidelines were published 2 years ago this month. These required turbines to have a noise limit of 40 decibels and a setback of 500 metres and a complete elimination of shadow flickers. Minister Kelly then started a further consultation process in the spring of 2014 and received up to 7,500 submissions that made many suggestions on how wind turbines could continue. This consultation delayed the publication of the new guidelines and got you through the European and local elections. Since then, various ministers have said that the new guidelines would be published in 2014, and we are now at the last month in 2015 and we have no new guidelines. There are county development plans being amended and overturned for taking a proactive stance and introducing local policy on wind energy in the absence of national policy. You yourself have recently changed the Refit 2 scheme to enable existing applicants who are experiencing difficulty on the planning process.
Thank you, Deputy.
Minister Kelly, Minister Kelly has said. Minister Kelly.
Sorry. Just over there. Sorry, Deputy Mumble. Sorry, there's no points of order during these questions.
If you the deputies would listen to what I'm saying, they wouldn't need any circulation of anything.
You're over time, Deputy. You're over time.
Minister Kelly has said he favours a distance of between 600 metres to 1.5 kilometres for dwellings. Minister Coffey seemed very frustrated with your own position in a huge issue, and is a huge issue in the South East. You yourself, Minister, are on record disagreeing about long distances from dwellings. As you said yourself, it would wipe out onshore wind energy in this country. Can I ask the Minister?
Please.
Is the government still committed to onshore wind energy as a source of alternative energy? If so, can communities across the country expect the publication of the new guidelines about the size of the turbines, the required distance from dwellings, as well as the decibel limits?
Thank you, Deputy.
Will these guidelines be put on a statutory footing? Can I also ask the Minister,
Deputy, sorry.
has talks between himself and Minister Kelly broken down? And can the Minister indicate whether the new distance will be 600 metres or will it be more up to 1.5 kilometres, as Minister Kelly is recommending? Thank you, Lascan Gordon.
Please, first of all, sorry. I hope the decibels we're talking about will be lower. Minister.
Leas-Ceann Comhairle, I want to, first of all, if I may, recognise the Deputy's opening remarks about the importance of the discussions and negotiations that are currently taking place in Paris at the COP21 conference. And the challenge to all of the world, not just to the people in this chamber, rural Ireland or urban Ireland or anywhere else in the country, the challenge to the citizens of this country and the citizens of the entire world is to reach an agreement so that we can ensure that the planet that we live in and the physical environment in which we want to have our lives and future generations we hope will have their lives will be protected from the adverse impact and the growing adverse impact of global warming. I'm sorry, though, to note that Deputy Troy's aspirational remarks in the first 15 seconds or so of his contribution was quickly abandoned by him, because I would regard the necessity for an agreement at COP21 to be perhaps the most pressing issue facing the world, including the people of Tipperary. If Deputy McGrath would give himself even a minute or two to consider these big issues and try not to continue thinking so small and so local all the time, and to think, even just for 5 minutes or so, to think about the broader opportunities and potential that we have to actually bring about change. And I would say this to people at all sides of this House. We can debate energy policy, for example, which I have the privilege to be responsible for, and I'll come back to the issue of wind in a minute. We can debate these issues, and we should debate these issues, but we cannot reduce these issues to a backbiting effort to embarrass this or that minister about this or that set of regulations. There's a legitimate issue there. There is a legitimate issue there. Will you just listen for a minute, Deputy? There's a legitimate issue which we can debate. But can we not just think big, even for a few minutes, about the challenges that are actually facing us as a people and as a planet? And that is what I would actually appeal to Deputy Troy and his party, and others indeed. And there are many deputies in this House who do understand the importance of these issues. Now, on the question of wind, there is no question at all in my mind, and I'll answer you bluntly and clearly, that yes, onshore wind and the development and advancement of onshore wind will be and will need to be a significant element of our energy policy and of our approach to combating climate change in this country in the years ahead. Yes is the answer to that. And I can only speak as Minister, and I'll have a white paper before government shortly, and that will be published, and this government will set out its view. I don't know who will be Minister here next year or the year after, but I can say this, whoever he or she is, will continue the policy that was begun by the government of which he was a supporter and Deputy Cowan was a supporter. And I would respect what they did by advancing that policy. And some of the members over there, I think, are a little embarrassed by the attempt to reduce this to the kind of backbiting that Deputy Troy has. Because we have to advance renewable energy in this country. We have to advance our policy on energy efficiency. Otherwise, we will simply not be in a position to make a realistic or make any contribution to the kind of change that we need in this country. And on the wind energy guidelines, nothing has broken down between ministers in relation to it. The government, the departments, yes, are continuing to consider what will be the best set of guidelines. But we have guidelines in place at the moment. I think there's a good argument to make them statutory. I think there's a very strong case for changing the guidelines to deal with the issue of noise that Deputy Troy mentioned. I think there's a very strong argument to change the guidelines to deal with the issue of shadow flicker that Deputy Troy mentioned. The issue of having a setback distance that's unconnected to the issue of noise or shadow flicker is more problematic in my view, and I've been very honest about that. Because if we put in place a setback distance of the kind that some people are advocating, I emphasise some people are advocating, I repeat, it would wipe out onshore wind in this country as a renewable, a technology, by the way, which his party, when it was in government, was happy and right to bring forward at the time. And we are now continuing that, this government is continuing that process now, because we have to do it. And there's no use talking about climate change and big aspirational points, which make sense, of course, on their own, and then actually just quickly abandon all those big thoughts and get back to seeing who you can embarrass. Let's work together on this issue, Deputy. Let's work together as a country and as a parliament to actually address climate change, and away with all of this nonsense of attacking people just for the sake.
Thank you, Minister. I now call Deputy Troy. Sorry, could I have order, please? And if we've order, people might stay within the speaking time limits.
Yeah, thank you, Lieutenant Corley. And hopefully the government TDs will afford me the same courtesy we afforded the Minister and listen to his reply. Minister, you spoke about our position, but contrary to what you're saying, Fianna Fáil published an alternative energy document nearly 2 years ago, and we submitted that as part of the process which your government initiated. And we actually visited Denmark to consult experts before we finalised the plan, a country which is held up as one of them for international best practice, a country who has recently moved away from onshore wind energy to offshore wind energy. And if you want a copy of that plan, I brought it with me this morning, or I can submit it to your office. We are committed to meeting the EU targets to reduce carbon emissions by 2030. But the wind issue is an issue of huge concern across all the provinces. And it might not be a big issue in the centre of Dublin, but it certainly is a big issue in my constituency of Longford-Westmeath and many, many other constituencies the length and breadth of this country. And being committed to climate change and publishing new documents is all very well, but when these documents are not being backed up with implementation and action plans, they simply gather dust. It's 2 years, Minister, 2 years since your government committed to publishing new guidelines on wind turbines. County development plans have been delayed, overturned, amended. There are High Court cases pending. There are still applications coming in under outdated wind energy guidelines from 2006. Still applications coming in today, and if an application comes in today, it will be dealt with under the old guidelines. Communities have real and genuine fears out there, Minister, and I'm only up here today representing their real and genuine fears. And I know you're meeting them in delegations from other government TDs on an ongoing basis. You too know the real and genuine concerns that are out there today. But can I simply ask you one question, Minister? When will this government, both Fine Gael and Labour, produce the wind energy guidelines?
Thank you.
Will those guidelines be put on a statutory footing? And finally, who will win the argument? Will it be Minister Kelly or Minister White?
Thank you.
And what will the setback distance be? Because I am standing up for the communities who have real fears here today, Minister.
Well, the people of Ireland need to win the argument, and the Deputy, says that he's here to represent his constituents, and that is absolutely true, and he does that with great fervour. But he's also here to show a bit of leadership. And when is the Deputy going to show some leadership on this issue? When is he going to show, and when are we all going to realise? When are we all going to realise that yes, there is a tension between what we need to do in renewable energy and the genuine concerns and legitimate concerns of citizens and local communities. We have to recognise that that tension is there, and we are the people to whom it falls to have a way of resolving that. And in the white paper, which will be published next week, you wanted to talk about your own document, which I've seen, but you shouldn't denigrate the idea that we will come together as a government and debate in this Parliament a white paper which will set a path now, on not just on renewable energy, but all of those related issues to do with energy for the coming years. We can have that debate in this House. You just want to snipe about the planning applications, but just think for a minute about the possibilities that are for this country in relation to developing renewable energy. We'll have the opportunity to have that debate here in the coming weeks. A central element of the white paper will be addressing this genuine tension that there is there, this concern that people have in local communities about energy policy. The responsibility for the publication of guidelines is a matter for the Minister for the Environment. As you know, I have made my position very clear, and the sniping and the heckling from the members opposite will always be a substitute, unfortunately, for real debate. Deputy Moynihan is your representative on the committee. Deputy Moynihan contributes absolutely on the issue of energy, but you cannot cannot reduce the energy policy, Deputy Cowan or Deputy Troy. You cannot reduce your responsibility in this House. You cannot reduce it in the way that you're seeking to do to the legitimate concerns that local communities have. You have a responsibility to match that as well to what we need to do as a country, to have a renewable energy policy that meets the challenges of the future, to face the future, not to constantly face the past, not to constantly just regard your job as the representative role that it undoubtedly is, but also to give leadership. And the members opposite will never allow you. The members opposite will ask questions and won't allow you to finish. They're afraid that they will be exposed in terms of their lack of any leadership on this issue. We will proceed. We will have a renewable energy policy. It will be one that will be supported by the people because they will see the great potential that's inherent in it. Thank you.